He knows how to balance a budget? Or do we want the continued administration that's been living on credit cards for the past 8 years? By the way, that is your credit card and mine that it's been living on. We will be paying the bills they pile up for decades, and so will our grandchildren. Do we want a new president who cares about urban problems and who has developed creative programs to help cure them? Or do we want to continue an administration that long ago consigned the cities to the scrap heap? Do we want a new president who cares about the rights of all? Or do we want to continue an administration that's been trying to turn the civil rights clock back into the last century? Do we want a new president with a proven record of integrity? Or do we want to continue an administration in which too many members seem to be in government to find a ticket to the big bucks and whose lax oversight gave us a scandal in the Pentagon? I want to change this fall. You want to change this fall. This country needs a change this fall. And the only way to assure that change is to settle our differences right here on the floor of this convention before we leave Atlanta, and leave here united and pointed for victory. This has been an exciting primary season. It's been an historic primary season. In the end, it has narrowed down to a contest between the son of an immigrant family and the descendant of slaves. Where else, in what other party, could you have such a contest? Only in the Democratic Party. And that's what the Democratic Party is all about. And that is why we must leave here united, with our energy combined for victory in November. Thank you very much.
world leader in document processing. We document the world. And by Merrill Lynch.
Getting more and more, what's the word, Bernie, animated as they've gone through those hours waiting for what's called in the Democratic Convention prime time. CNN's Tom Mantier is down with delegates from the Pennsylvania delegation.
I am with Mayor Wilson Goode and Philadelphia. Mayor Goode, you told me a few moments ago that there is harmony. You can feel it in this room.
You can feel it throughout. There is this friendly competition going on now, but come Thursday, there will be nothing but unity throughout this entire place. Jesse and Mike are together. They will work hard together for victory in November.
You come here as a Dukakis delegate. There was some talk that the Jackson people wanted you to vote for Jesse on the first ballot.
Well, I intend to vote for Jesse on the first ballot. I've been released by the Dukakis campaign to do so. So I'm here and we'll vote for Jesse on the first ballot and we'll support him throughout. But I see he and Dukakis coming together in a very nice way.
The negotiations that went on today, do you think that the word is going to get out fast enough to bring harmony on the floor? It came after the caucuses were held this morning.
I don't think there's any question but that come Thursday that we're going to have a unified party coming out of this convention that will go on and win in November.
All right, Mayor Wilson Goode, the mayor of Philadelphia. Let's go back upstairs to Mary Alice.
And back downstairs to Frank Sesno in the South Carolina delegation.
Gore, of course, a former candidate himself. You are now hearing and seeing what the rest of us are. Are you convinced that Jesse Jackson and Michael Dukakis have done all they need to do to assure unity at this place?
Knowing both of them personally as well as I do, I never really had a serious doubt that they would get together. And I personally believe that the unity is real, that the enthusiasm for a Democratic victory is shared, and that we're going to see a very big head of steam coming out of this convention.
Have you talked to Jesse Jackson since he met with Dukakis this morning?
Last time I talked to him last night, and our people have talked as our people have talked with the Dukakis people, but no, I have not talked with him since the meeting.
What is his disposition, and more specifically, what is he going to do? What do you think we can expect to see in this general election campaign?
Now you'll have to hear that from him. My impression is that he very much wants a Democratic victory, as every delegate here does.
Senator Gore, thank you very much. I see you have to go. We'll go back to the booth.
Mary Tillotson is over there in the Illinois delegation. Mary?
I've got a state chairman of Jesse Jackson's campaign in Illinois is here with me, Bernie. His name is State Senator Howard Brookins. And you say that Jesse Jackson's name will be put in nomination as a favorite son for the presidency. But you don't expect him to win that over Dukakis at this point, given those votes, do you?
Well, Jesse said today that anything can happen when you're from Chicago, and he's looking for a Chicago miracle. And Mayor Daley told us to vote often, early and often.
And mostly often. And then again, you are also saying, however, that given the likelihood that Michael Dukakis will be the nominee of this party, the numbers are there, that you still think Jesse Jackson's name will be put into nomination as vice presidential candidate.
That we'll have to wait and see. The push for that will be what is worked out. They are still negotiating, as I understand it, and we do not have marching orders on that. But as you know, the Action Jackson campaign is a lively bunch, and anything can happen when you have a lively bunch.
Despite what Jackson himself
Well, Jackson has asked for discipline. He has asked us to be disciplined, to be orderly, and be attentive, and play by the rules. It is certainly part of the rules that if some member do place his name in nomination, that could happen.
Illinois State Senator Howard Brookins. Let's go back to Mary Alice.
Thank you, Mary, and down to Gene Randall in the Louisiana delegation.
Sherman Copeland is the vice chair of this Louisiana delegation. Jesse Jackson, of course, won one of his 5 victories on Super Tuesday in this state. He has a good deal of support here. 31 delegates will vote for Jackson on the first ballot.
Swords into plowshares and spears into pruning hooks. Let justice and peace become our magnificent obsession and lead us from the love of power to the power of love. For indeed thy love divine hath led us in the past. In this free land by thee our lot is cast. Be thou our ruler, guardian, guide, and stay. thy word our law, thy paths our chosen way. Refresh thy people on their toilsome way. Lead us from night to never-ending day. Fill all our lives with love and grace divine, and glory, Lord, and praise be ever thine. Amen.
Welcome to the convention. My name is Garrison Keeler, and I want to introduce my colleagues here on the podium. Thank you. Politics is about the future, and so we invited the future to join us tonight. These kids, all of them above average, all 6, 7, and 8 years old, which means that with any luck they'll graduate from high school in the classes of 1998, 99, and the year 2000. To you and me, the year 2000 is like science fiction, but to these kids, it's just the year that they turn 18 years old. So please stand along with all of us kids, and let's all say together, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now let's all sing this beautiful, beautiful old song we've all sung since we were children. Do you know the words to this? Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming? Let's all sing this song. Some people think this song is warlike, but it isn't about war. It just asks if the flag is still there and if the nation still survives. This nation of many nations, this nation of all races, and this nation of many cultures, but a nation of one dream, the dream of freedom and equality and opportunity. And as long as we see the flag is still there, even though our dream is always in danger, as long as the flag still flies when the sun rises, then there's still hope. And let's all sing this song in the key of G, the people's key.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed
Did you ever hear that song sound better? Some think it's a hard song to sing. It sounds best of all when everybody sings it together. And that's what we've got tonight, togetherness. This country of ours is a rich fabric made up of many threads from many parts of the Union. This year, more than ever, our Democratic ticket symbolizes how Americans of all backgrounds can participate and contribute in our political process. And I'm going to introduce someone who will present the keynote speaker for the night. But I particularly take pride in bringing on a young man from the Mississippi Delta country. His roots are sunk deep in the Mississippi Delta soil. He stands as a living symbol of the pulsating tolerance and growth that have come upon that great state of Mississippi. He is the first black member of Congress to serve from the state of Mississippi since Reconstruction days. He has been in Congress only a short while, has made himself a real authority on agriculture, and has begun to demonstrate great effectiveness, respected by all of his colleagues. And so from the state of Mississippi, I present to introduce our keynote speaker, my colleague, Mike Espy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm here tonight to introduce our keynote speaker, who will lay out the choices that this election presents. But first, let's pause and look back. It was 1964, another daughter of the South captured the attention of the nation with her stirring testimony about the pains and struggles of blacks in this country. Her name was Fannie Lou Hamer, a sharecropper and a Mississippi Freedom Democrat from the small town of Ruleville, Mississippi. Now, there may be some of you here who are too young to remember her. You need to know her. Her words at this convention 24 years ago, her struggle for poor blacks and poor whites, and her vision of a freer, braver, more prosperous America gave birth to the reforms that have made it possible for everyone to play a role in this party and for me to be able to stand here with you tonight. With tears streaming down her face, Ms. Hamer cried out at Atlantic City, "Is this America? Is this the land of the free? Is this the home of the brave?" My answer tonight, as I believe hers would be, is yes. This is the land of the free, and yes, this is the home of the brave, where we all work together to keep our country safe for our children, faithful to God, and filled with opportunities for all. Yes, because the hands that once picked cotton and the hands that baked bread and rocked cradles are now the hands of men and women who run for president and governor and Congress and mayor. These are the hands that create the great patchwork quilt that is our Democratic Party. Fannie Lou's appeal to the conscience of this nation is one of the reasons another daughter from the South will keynote this convention tonight, a convention that brings together, in the spirit of unity, a son of immigrants and a descendant of slaves. Fannie Lou was a prophet of freedom. Our speaker tonight can be aptly called a voice of the future, an eloquent voice who expresses the basic beliefs of our party and of our democracy. Her name is Ann Richards. She grew up in a poor family. Her parents said that she could be anything that she wanted to be, and she has proven them right. She can command a crowd. She doesn't mince words. She tells it just like it is. Her message transcends race and gender. Her message reaches out to our elderly, to our family farmers, and to our children. And even as she has climbed up the ladder of elective office, she has never looked down on the people that she serves. She is a unifier and a healer. But she's also a tough money manager. As treasurer of the state of Texas, she has balanced the books in the face of some tough times. And if you ask the folks from Texas, they'll tell you she has been tested. I predict that the name of this new woman of the South, this woman of Texas, will be added to the list of freedom-seeking, authentic heroes. Men and women with no time for narrow thinking, no time for self-pity, no time for cowardice, having time only for courage, for charity, and for change. Wondering only about the future and how to bring everybody along together toward our new vision. Change is here, Fannie Lou, because it is a new Mississippi. It is a new South, Fannie Lou, where everyone shares hopes about our children and about our country. Fannie Lou often said in speeches back home, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired." Well, Ann, Democrats all across this country are sick and tired of being sick and tired of a Republican Party that has written off the South. We're sick and tired of being sick and tired of a Republican Party with no vision of the common good. And so, Ann, after hearing you, and after this great Democratic convention, we will be energized and unified and strong and ready to work together to regain the White House in November. Tonight America is lucky. We're going to hear a new voice. We're going to get to know a rare and very special new political leader. America, meet Ann Richards.
Well, we've all seen the picture. The deep blue of the Texas night sky, a hint of starlight, and the orange glow of the campfire, and around it are the manly forms of the good old boys, doing what real he-men do, drinking beer and staring at nothing in particular.
She wasn't born funny, but she got funny pretty quick. That was so she could keep up with her daddy, the funniest pharmaceutical salesman in Lakeview, Texas, a great kidder. They were poor, but then most people were in Lakeview, so nobody really noticed. And the world of the 30s came in on the radio.
Pretty good, Johnny, but that ain't the way I heard it. Has a rendezvous with destiny.
But one thing her daddy never kidded about was his daughter's future. He told her she could be anything she wanted to be, and she never forgot it. When she was ready for high school, the family moved the 10 miles to Waco. Her determined mama wanted Ann to have a big city education. At Waco High, she turned out to be a first-class debater and found that she loved being center stage. And then on to Baylor on a scholarship, where she met a local political firebrand, Dave Richards. On their honeymoon, they put up campaign posters for Henry B. Gonzalez and a whole slew of Democrats. 25 years, 4 kids, and a bunch of canoe trips later, there was this opening on the Travis County Commission, and Ann got elected. She got the commission to serving people instead of just fixing bridges. And next, Treasurer of the state of Texas.
I, Ann Richards, do solemnly swear.
Ann took over an office that hadn't changed much since the days of the Alamo, and she changed it. She brought the place up to date, got the money managed right, and inside 4 years, the Treasury had earned $1 billion in interest. Her strength as a manager is part of her warmth as a person. And when you meet Ann Richards, you know you've connected with somebody. So one of these days, Ann Richards will say confidently to her granddaughter what her daddy said long ago to her: you can be anything you want to be. Ladies and gentlemen, Ann agreed to come here tonight to deliver the keynote address. And since her word is as good as her bond, here she is, Ann Richards.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Buenas noches, mis amigos. I'm delighted to be here with you this evening because after listening to George Bush all these years, I figured you needed to know what a real Texas accent sounds like. Years ago, Barbara Jordan, another Texas woman, Barbara made the keynote address to this convention, and 2 women in 160 years is about par for the course. But if you give us a chance, we can perform. After all, Ginger Rogers did everything that Fred Astaire did. She just did it backwards and in high heels. I want to announce to this nation that in a little more than 100 days, the Reagan, Meese, Deaver, Knopfziger, Poindexter, North, Weinberger, Watt, Gorsuch, Lavelle, Stockman, Haig, Bort, Noriega, George Bush will be over. You know, tonight I feel a little like I did when I played basketball in the 8th grade. I thought I looked real cute in my uniform. And then I heard a boy yell from the bleachers, "Make that basket, bird legs." And my greatest fear is that same guy is somewhere out there in the audience tonight. And he's going to cut me down to size. Because where I grew up, there really wasn't much tolerance for self-importance, people who put on airs. I was born during the Depression in a little community just outside Waco, and I grew up listening to Franklin Roosevelt on the radio. Well, it was back then that I came to understand the small truths and the hardships that bind neighbors together. Those were real people with real problems, and they had real dreams about getting out of the Depression. I can remember summer nights when we'd put down what we called a Baptist pallet, and we listened to the grown-ups talk. I can still hear the sound of the dominoes clicking on the marble slab my daddy had found for a tabletop. I can still hear the laughter of the men telling jokes you weren't supposed to hear, talking about how big that old buck deer was, laughing about Mama putting Clorox in the well when the frog fell in. They talked about war and Washington and what this country needed. They talked straight talk, and it came from people who were living their lives as best they could. And that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to tell how the cow ate the cabbage. I got a letter last week from a young mother in Lorena, Texas, and I want to read part of it to you. She writes, "Our worries go from payday to payday, just like millions of others. And we have two fairly decent incomes, but I worry how I'm going to pay the rising car insurance and food. I pray my kids don't have a growth spurt from August to December so I don't have to buy new jeans. We buy clothes at the budget stores and we have them fray and fade and stretch in the first wash. We ponder and try to figure out how we're going to pay for college and braces and tennis shoes. We don't take vacations and we don't go out to eat. Please don't think me ungrateful. We have jobs and a nice place to live, and we're healthy. We're the people you see every day in the grocery stores. We obey the laws, we pay our taxes, we fly our flags on holidays, and we plod along trying to make it better for ourselves and our children and our parents. We aren't vocal anymore. I think maybe we're too tired. I believe that people like us are forgotten in America." Well, of course you believe you're forgotten, because you have been. This Republican administration treats us as if we were pieces of a puzzle that can't fit together. They've tried to put us into compartments and separate us from each other. Their political theory is divide and conquer. They've suggested time and time again that what is of interest to one group of Americans is not of interest to anyone else. We've been isolated. We've been lumped into that sad phraseology called special interests. They've told farmers that they were selfish, that they would drive up food prices if they asked the government to intervene on behalf of the family farm. And we watched farms go on the auction block while we bought food from foreign countries. Well, that's wrong. They told working mothers it's all their fault that families are falling apart because they had to go to work to keep their kids in jeans and tennis shoes in college, and they're wrong. They told American labor they were trying to ruin free enterprise by asking for 60 days notice of plant closings, and that's wrong. And they told the auto industry and the steel industry and the timber industry and the oil industry, companies being threatened by foreign products flooding this country, that you're protectionist if you think the government should enforce our trade laws, and that is wrong. When they belittle us for demanding clean air and clean water, for trying to save the oceans and the ozone layer, that's wrong. No wonder we feel isolated and confused. We want answers, and their answer is that something is wrong with you. Well, nothing's wrong with you. Nothing's wrong with you that you can't fix in November. We've been told that the interests of the South and the Southwest are not the same interests as the North and the Northeast. They pit one group against the other. They've divided this country. And in our isolation, we think government isn't going to help us. And we're alone in our feelings. We feel forgotten. Well, the fact is that we are not an isolated piece of their puzzle. We are one nation. We are the United States of America. Now, we Democrats believe that America is still the country of fair play, that we can come out of a small town or a poor neighborhood and have the same chance as anyone else, and it doesn't matter whether we are black or Hispanic or disabled or women. We believe that America is a country where small business owners must succeed because they are the bedrock, backbone of our economy. We believe that our kids deserve good daycare and public schools. We believe our kids deserve public schools where students can learn and teachers can teach. And we want to believe that our parents will have a good retirement, and that we will too. We Democrats believe that Social Security is a pact that cannot be broken. We want to believe that we can live out our lives without the terrible fear that an illness is going to bankrupt us and our children. We Democrats believe that America can overcome any problem, including the dreaded disease called AIDS. We believe that America is still a country where there is more to life than just a constant struggle for money. And we believe that America must have leaders who show us that our struggles amount to something and contribute to something larger, leaders who want us to be all that we can be. We want leaders like Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson is a leader and a teacher who can open our hearts and open our minds and stir our very souls. And he has taught us that we are as good as our capacity for caring about the drug problem, caring about crime, caring about education, and caring about each other. Now, in contrast, the greatest nation of the free world has had a leader for 8 straight years that has pretended that he cannot hear our questions over the noise of the helicopters. And we know he doesn't want to answer, but we have a lot of questions. And when we get our questions asked, or there is a leak, or an investigation, the only answer we get is, I don't know, or I forgot. But you wouldn't accept that answer from your children. Don't tell me you don't know or you forgot. We're not going to have the America that we want until we elect leaders who are going to tell the truth. Not most days, but every day. Leaders who don't forget what they don't want to remember. And for 8 straight years, George Bush hasn't displayed the slightest interest in anything we care about. And now that he's after a job that he can't get appointed to, he's like Columbus discovering America. He's found child care. He's found education. Poor George. He can't help it. He was born with a silver foot in his mouth. Well, no wonder. No wonder we can't figure it out. Because the leadership of this nation is telling us one thing on TV and doing something entirely different. They tell us that they're fighting a war against terrorists. And then we find out that the White House is selling arms to the Ayatollah. They tell us that they're fighting a war on drugs. And then people come on TV and testify that the CIA and the DEA and the FBI knew they were flying drugs into America all along. And they're negotiating with a dictator who is shoveling cocaine into this country like crazy. I guess that's their Central American strategy. Now, they tell us that employment rates are great and that they're for equal opportunity. But we know it takes 2 paychecks to make ends meet today when it used to take 1. And the opportunity they're so proud of is low-wage, dead-end jobs. And there is no major city in America where you cannot see homeless men sitting in parking lots holding signs that say, "I will work for food." Now, my friends, we really are at a crucial point in American history. Under this administration, we have devoted our resources into making this country a military colossus. But we've let our economic lines of defense fall into disrepair. The debt of this nation is greater than it has ever been in our history. We fought a world war on less debt than the Republicans have built up in the last 8 years. You know, it's kind of like that brother-in-law who drives a flashy new car, but he's always borrowing money from you to make the payments. Well, but let's take what they're proudest of. That is their stand on defense. We Democrats are committed to a strong America, and quite frankly, when our leaders say to us, we need a new weapons system, our inclination is to say, well, they must be right. But when we pay billions for planes that won't fly, billions for tanks that won't fire, and billions for systems that won't work, that old dog won't hunt. And you don't have to be from Waco to know that when the Pentagon makes crooks rich and doesn't make America strong, that it's a bum deal. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm really glad that our young people missed the Depression and missed the great big war. But I do regret that they missed the leaders that I knew. Leaders who told us when things were tough and that we'd have to sacrifice and that these difficulties might last for a while. They didn't tell us things were hard for us because we were different or isolated or special interests. They brought us together and they gave us a sense of national purpose. They gave us Social Security, and they told us they were setting up a system where we could pay our own money in, and when the time came for our retirement, we could take the money out. People in the rural areas were told that we deserved to have electric lights, and they were going to harness the energy that was necessary to give us electricity so my grandmama didn't have to carry that old coal oil lamp around. And they told us that they were going to guarantee when we put our money in the bank that the money was going to be there and it was going to be insured. They did not lie to us. And I think one of the saving graces of Democrats is that we are candid. We talk straight talk. We tell people what we think. And that tradition and those values live today in Michael Dukakis from Massachusetts. Michael Dukakis knows that this country is on the edge of a great new era. that we're not afraid of change, that we're for thoughtful, truthful, strong leadership. Behind his calm, there's an impatience to unify this country and to get on with the future. His instincts are deeply American. They're tough and they're generous. And personally, I have to tell you that I have never met a man who had a more remarkable sense about what is really important in life. And then there's my friend and my teacher for many years, Senator Lloyd Bentsen. And I couldn't be prouder, both as a Texan and as a Democrat, because Lloyd Bentsen understands America. From the barrio to the boardroom, he knows how to bring us together by regions, by economics, and by example. And he's already beaten George Bush once. So when it comes right down to it, this election is a contest between those who are satisfied with what they have and those who know we can do better. That's what this election is really all about. It's about the American dream, those who want to keep it for the few, and those who know it must be nurtured and passed along. I'm a grandmother now, and I have one nearly perfect granddaughter named Lily. And when I hold that grandbaby, I feel the continuity of life that unites us, that binds generation to generation, that ties us with each other. And sometimes I spread that Baptist pallet out on the floor, and Lily and I roll a ball back and forth. And I think of all the families like mine, like the one in Lorena, Texas, like the ones that nurture children all across America. And as I look at Lily, I know that it is within families that we learn both the need to respect individual human dignity and to work together for our common good within our families, within our nation. It is the same. And as I sit there, I wonder if she'll ever grasp the changes I've seen in my life, if she'll ever believe that there was a time when blacks could not drink from public water fountains, when Hispanic children were punished for speaking Spanish in the public schools, and women couldn't vote. I think of all the political fights I've fought and all the compromises I've had to accept as part payment. And I think of all the small victories that have added up to national triumphs, and all the things that would never have happened, and all the people who would have been left behind if we had not reasoned and fought and won those battles together. And I will tell Lily that those triumphs were Democratic Party triumphs. I want so much to tell Lily how far we've come, you and I. And as the ball rolls back and forth, I want to tell her how very lucky she is. That for all of our difference, we are still the greatest nation on this good earth. And our strength lies in the men and women who go to work every day, who struggle to balance their family and their jobs, and who should never, ever be forgotten. I just hope that, like her grandparents and her great-grandparents before, that Lily goes on to raise her kids with the promise that echoes in homes all across America, that we can do better, and that's what this election is all about. Thank you very much.
Gosh, she's great. Gosh, she's amazing. When you and I were little kids and went to school and stood up first thing in the morning to pledge allegiance to the flag and sing America the Beautiful, we believed certain things to be true about America, some of which maybe turned out not to be. One thing we believed was that the president was a great man, and the governor and all those jowly old guys in the baggy suits who seemed to be running things back then. Whether they were great or not, we thought they were, because we believed that to serve the public, to be in government, to serve the people, was a great thing. And about that, we were absolutely right. And if we have gotten too smart as we got older and don't believe it anymore, then here's the Democratic Convention to remind us that to serve the people is good and honorable work and a blessing. This belief comes through so clearly in these letters that we got from children in schools all around the country in answer to the question, what would you do if you became president? And here to help read them are two actors you know, one a star of St. Elsewhere, the other young woman from the silver screen. Ladies and gentlemen, Ed Begley Jr. and Ali Sheedy. Ali, why don't you start with this letter from a kid way out west?
Okay, I'll begin with a young lady from South Elementary School in Lander, Wyoming. She's in the 1st grade, and she writes, if I was the president, I would tell people how to get somewhere and help people in homes with children. If there was a snow blizzard, I would help the animals get food. If a family's mom or dad died, they could come and live with me. If there was a war, I would stop it because I love people. I would wear a black hat and a dark purple dress. Signed, Jolene Dawn Barkley.
Go ahead.
This one is from 3rd grader Chris Moore, Hopkins Hill School, Covington, Rhode Island, who writes, if I were president of the United States, I would make speeches and say that this country is a place of happiness, not madness. I would make new laws to make the states one big family. Then I would sit in my Oval Office in the White House and think very hard for this country. And if I didn't come up with anything, I wouldn't go to bed until I did come up with something. Some wisdom there. I would stop arguments and littering, but if I were president of the United States, I would have to be elected first. Thank you, Chris Moore. Another one. Some youngsters view the perks of the presidency as a credit card for travel, as does Josh of Austin, Texas. This guy already has his bags packed, as you'll see. If I were president of the United States, I would go to different countries in the world. I would go to China, Greece, Odessa, Chicago, New York, New Orleans, France, Paris, and Texas. I would also see people like America. The end.
Travel is also on the mind of Shawanda Barr, a 1st grader from Johnsonville, South Carolina. If I were president of the USA, I would go to Washington. Then I will go to Russia. Then I will go home and tell Mother. Then I will make more money. Then I'll give my father some money. If Jim comes to Russia, I will not let him in. Signed, Shawanda Barr.
This is a letter from Jessica Jemmett in the 2nd grade. She's from Wallowa, Oregon. She writes, if I were president of the United States, I'd make new laws like don't take drugs and be a good leader. I would make the cars be down to $7.99. I'd give money to the poor. I would make the taxes $8.99, the houses $9.99, the pianos $6.99, the computers would be $5.99, and all the food you buy $4.99, and the carpet $3.99, and all the toys $1.99. The jobs would be 99 cents, and the flowers would be free.
If I were president of the United States of America, I would be the worst president of the whole world. Jeremy is obviously a Republican.
Being president is hard work, but somebody's got to do it. Signed, soon-to-be President Melissa Ross.
Let's read just one more. This one is from Annette V., an 11-year-old, very bright kid. Allie, read this.
As President of the United States of America, I would plan a Feed the Ones Who Really Need It campaign. I would also set up skills camps. In the skills camps, people would learn different trades. Then they would be able to make money on their own. I've always believed that people do better work independently. If I were president, I would donate part of my extremely high salary to fix roads, etc. Then people wouldn't have to pay such high taxes. For our relationship with other nations, now I can't say much for it. I would try to be as nice as I could to whoever is the president of Russia in the year 2000. For our large money deficit, I can't say much for that either. it really needs some attention. One idea would be to ask people to manufacture as much as they possibly can of items that are worth exporting. I know that I'm just 11 years old, and I have a simple mind, and I could never think of being president, but I have some ideas the common people would like to see happening with our government. There are changes we would all like to see happening, changes that need to happen. I sure hope someone can make them.
Out of the mouths of babes.
Into the hearts of men and women everywhere.
Keep the dream alive for them. Go to the polls in November and vote for their future. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are running just a little bit behind, but we'll catch up. I want to present a young man who represents California. He represents the United States. His is a remarkable story. From the auto assembly line to the United Auto Workers, to the East Los Angeles Poverty Program, to the Carter White House as UNESCO ambassador, and now as representative from the 34th District of California, please welcome Congressman Esteban Torres.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Delegates and honored guests, Esteban Torres, the son of a copper miner, is making political history tonight. I'm the first Hispanic to speak on prime time on this convention. You know, my being here is tangible proof that this party includes everyone. I mean everyone. Our Democratic National Committee chairman has worked hard to make this party the political home of every American. He's the architect of a strong, influential, and winning organization. He understands that to win the White House, the Democratic candidate must win states. And so he has insisted on strengthening our state parties. He understands that to win, we need resources. And so he has raised more money than any other chairman. He understands that to win in November, our strength is in our diversity. And so he has worked to open up communications between party factions. As the co-chairman of the National Hispanic Democrats, I know our Democratic National Committee chairman is fair but firm. He is firm in his resolve to see Democrats victorious. He is the architect of a winning plan. And so it is up to us to implement that blueprint. It is up to us to build a lasting structure. Ladies and gentlemen, delegates, it is my pleasure and a high personal honor to introduce to you the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, Mr. Paul Kirk. Thank you very much. Are you proud to be a Democrat? So am I. My term began 4 years ago, in the middle of the 1980s, a decade in which the Republican Party controlled the executive branch for 8 years, and the United States Senate for 6 of those years. The Democratic Party had suffered its worst defeat 4th out of 5 national elections. The pundits said we were splintered and adrift, that a Republican realignment was sure to sweep the country. But for me, the echo of the campaign of 1984 rang louder than the prophets of doom. 4 years ago, the Republican candidate asked the American people to recall the greatest days of this republic. To help them remember, he invoked the names of certain political heroes. But think back, not once did he mention a Republican. But he spoke of Franklin Roosevelt and Harry Truman and John Fitzgerald Kennedy and Hubert Humphrey and Scoop Jackson. Every one a Democrat, unafraid of change and confident of the future. Every one a friend of the working families of America. And every one a public model of competence and fairness. 4 years later, it is clear that though the Republican Party of the 1980s found it politically expedient to invoke those Democratic names, they have yet to find it in their hearts to invoke their values. Nor could they find it in their hearts to match their own rhetoric. They talked of fiscal responsibility, but the Republican Party borrowed selfishly from your future and created more debt and more deficits than all the preceding 39 administrations combined. From the day George Washington took his oath of office to the day Jimmy Carter left the White House. They talked of the great American comeback, but they plunged a solvent America from the largest creditor nation to the largest debtor nation in the world. And oh yes, the Republican Party preached law and order and traditional American values, but it practiced a disdain for the rule of law, a contempt for the very government over which it presided, and a shameless tolerance of greed and corruption. And now, as the curtain falls on a Republican legacy of debt and scandal, the Democratic Party has regained its rightful heritage and regained its heroes as the party of the future. For the last 4 years, the Democratic Party has demonstrated that diversity and the politics of inclusion are a true reflection of the character, yes, the motto, of this republic that we love so well. E pluribus unum, one from many. For 4 years, we have practiced the politics of common sense, and we have never been distracted from our sense of common purpose. When some said the South would realign and go Republican, the families of the South had a different view. For it was in the South that the comeback march to victory of the Democratic Party began. From the 1st Congressional District of Texas to the Commonwealth of Virginia, to the return of a Democratic majority to the United States Senate in 1986. Along the march to victory, this party stopped to listen to the voices of working families all across this country. From all those human stories, a tale can be told, which reminds me in a powerful and poignant way why I ran for chairman and what it means to be a Democrat.
It is a story of Stanley Chesnowski and Rose O'Donnell. Stan's father was a steel worker. Rose's dad, a policeman. When Stan and Rose got married, they promised to do as their parents had done. If blessed with children, to leave a better opportunity for their kids than they had themselves. The simple aspiration of every American family. Stan and Rose live in Middle America. They have 3 young boys. Until 1984, Stan worked at the same steel mill his father had worked before him. One day, without notice, the plant closed. Stan lost his job, and for a while, his individual dignity. Today, he works 2 jobs that pay less than he made at the steel mill. Rose works full-time as well, so the family can break even. They worry as their parents grow old. Rose's mother told her recently, "I'm not afraid to die, but I'm afraid to get sick because we could never afford the medical bills." Stan and Rose work hard. They love this country. They love their kids. They're scared about drugs, and they feel guilty because they can't be home when their youngest comes home from school every day. They have little time for fun and little time for politics. Their lives are a daily, constant struggle. A struggle for time just to be together as a family, and for money just to make ends meet. One Friday night, after the boys had gone to bed, Rose was at the kitchen table helping Stan pay the bills. She said, "Stan, how come? How come we work so hard, even harder than our parents did, and already we know we'll never afford to send our kids to college?" As soon as the words left her lips, she said she wished they had not. She saw the hurt in Stan's face, as if somehow he had let his family down. Rose said he looked at her with eyes most moist and tired and said, "Rosie, the trouble with the world today is the future is not what it used to be." That statement, that story, that family and your family is why the election of 1988 is so important. It is a call and a challenge to the Democratic Party of the United States to restore hope and security to the families of working Americans, regardless of the color of their collar or the color of their skin. It is about restoring the priorities of quality education, quality jobs, dependable child care, and affordable and available housing and health care. I ask you to think about this election, which political party you choose, and think about the priorities of your own family. Compare the campaign for the nomination of the Republican Party. It was a debate about pedigree and privilege, about blind trusts and tax returns and wealth and family fortunes. But in the Democratic Party of 1988, you heard a different debate. You heard a young senator urge us to honor our heroes by daring to dream again as they did. He reminded us that we could raise ourselves up on eagle's wings to new heights as Americans. And tonight, from this convention, let the voters of his state hear what we thought of his contribution to this campaign. Let us hear a cheer for Senator Joe Biden of Delaware. And from the West came a Democrat with his eyes on the future. He reminded us that America's most precious resources are its children, that investing in child care and education is not only the right thing to do, it's the only smart thing to do. That enlightened Democrat was the former Democratic governor from the state of Arizona, Bruce Babbitt. And in this campaign, another Democratic senator advised us not to be a neo-anything. Be true to ourselves and to the heritage of our party. Give us a government that cares, he said, because the last thing this country needs is 2 Republican parties. He was right then, he is right tonight. He is a tried and true Democrat. He is Senator Paul Simon of Illinois. and a young leader from the West challenge this administration to strike its white flag of surrender on trade and to raise the American flag of competition. Don't let the Republican Party deny basic fairness to workers. Don't deny them 60 days' notice that the plants where they work are about to close due to failed Republican trade policies. Democrats will fight for those jobs of working Americans, he said, because it's your fight, too. He's a fighting Democrat from the state of Missouri. I'm talking about Congressman Dick Gebhardt. And a strong voice from the South reminded us that the Democratic Party's historical strength must also be its future. That standing up for a national defense of readiness and resolve with a commitment that is second to none, the Democrats make that commitment in 1988, strengthened by the strong, clear voice of that young senator from Tennessee, Senator Al Gore. And a powerful leader within the Democratic Party emerged from this campaign. He brought poetry and passion to his cause. But he did more than move crowds. He moved kids away from drugs. He moved an agenda of greater social and economic and racial justice in America around the globe. He urged us to reinvest in America, and first and foremost in its people, to stop drugs from coming in and jobs from going out. He expanded our base and extended our vision. He prodded us to the common ground. He will further unite this party at this convention. He will help us win our victory in the fall. He is, of course, the Reverend Jesse Jackson. This election of 1988 is not a choice between the status quo and the past. It is an election about change and about the future. This election is not about the 1970s. It is about the 1990s. It is not a question of labels. It is a question of leadership. Leadership which will pay less attention to the lifestyles of the rich and famous and more attention to the lives of the worker, the family, the homeless, and the anonymous. In November, the American people will have a clear choice of which political party and what kind of president they want. They will choose a president who knows who he is and what he stands for. A chief executive of strength and steadiness with a gift of pragmatism and a passion for patriotism. Here in Atlanta, the Democratic Party of the United States will nominate that kind of president. The party of working men and women will bestow its highest honor upon the son of Greek immigrants. His life is one of decency and diligence. His public service is one of ethics and excellence. He is a take-charge, no-nonsense chief executive who combines the toughness to govern with the compassion to care. His confidence in the future is matched only by his commitment to a spirit of national teamwork, a spirit which will unite this country and move all its people toward a brighter tomorrow. He is the governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. He will be the 41st President of the United States. He is Michael Dukakis. And he will win with the standard and the support of a great teammate and a great senator from the state of Texas, the next Vice President of the United States, Lloyd Bentsen. In closing and in accounting for my stewardship as chairman, I am proud to report that this Democratic Party is more united, better financed, and better prepared for this election than at any time in recent history. While we stand on the threshold of a great opportunity, the only thing we must remember is the only thing that equals that opportunity is our obligation. Our obligation to one another to work together, and our obligation to those millions of Americans who are not here tonight, but who are counting on us. We meet in the Omni, the Latin word for all. As Democrats, we live by the words that begin both the Constitution of the United States and the Democratic Platform of 1988. For us, we the people means all the people of this land. And I want to issue this call from this convention to them. Democratic unity in Atlanta, Democratic victory in November, and a better America for all our people beginning in January of 1989. Thank you very much. We have a wonderful treat yet in store for us in this magnificent evening, and to present that final segment of our program, it is a pleasure for me to present to you a man who served as my colleague in the United States House of Representatives for 13 years, before serving with great distinction as the Secretary of Transportation in the Carter administration. He now is a member of the United States Senate, having been elected to take a previously Republican seat in the state of Washington, an outstanding member of the United States Senate from Washington, the Honorable Brock Adams.
Thank you, my friends from the state of Washington. I love you, everyone. My fellow delegates, Ed Muskie does not need to be introduced to this convention. But the principles that he stands for need to be reinvigorated in this nation. After 8 years of neglect, we need to restore those basic values that Ed Muskie has so steadfastly supported through a long career. He was for the environment long before it was popular. He was our vice presidential nominee, and many of you were there nearly 20 years ago when a message of hope had to be given to the many people of the United States. As Secretary of State, he obtained the release of our hostages without compromising our national honor. It was terribly important. As a private citizen, Ed Muskie has continued to give our country counsel, confidence, continuity. As a Democrat, he has proven that we stand for economic growth, for equality of opportunity, and hope for the future. Ladies and gentlemen, my fellow delegates, my fellow Americans, it's a privilege to present to you the Honorable Edmund S. Muskie, the man from Maine.
Thank you very much, Brock. Mr. Chairman, my friends, many of you know that I like to do things my own way. So I'm going to do this assignment speaking from my own written notes. I am here tonight to introduce a man who is equally at home hammering out treaty negotiations around a table at Camp David and hammering nails in a shelter for homeless families in the South Bronx. He was my boss. He is my friend. Jimmy Carter is a patient man, whether as an ardent fisherman who patiently ties his own flies with enviable results, or as a committed president pursuing to the very end of his term the negotiations which brought 55 American hostages home. Jimmy Carter has needed patience to endure the harsh and unfair criticism he has received since 1980. They said he paid too much attention to detail. But it was that very quality which enabled him to complete the Camp David agreement. And couldn't we have used such attention to detail in the Iran-Contra affair? He was ridiculed for his deep interest in human rights. But isn't it interesting that his successor now trumpets his own commitment to the same cause? They criticized his handling of the hostage crisis, but he did bring them home. And how are we to compare this administration's handling of its own hostage crisis? In the months to come, when the opposition continues to distort his record, we should set them straight. Jimmy Carter began the buildup of America's defense. He pledged real increases in defense spending and persuaded his NATO partners to do the same. He supported modern weapons systems, the cruise missile, the stealth bomber, and the Trident submarine. And he did it without waste and without scandal. Wouldn't it be nice if that were true today? He achieved the most detailed, comprehensive treaty in the history of arms control. A treaty whose ratification his opponent attacked, but whose restraints his opponent accepted for most of his presidency. He worked out arrangements for the ultimate deployment of a new generation of missiles in Europe, which persuaded the Soviets to move towards the INF treaties, which his successor, who is a convert to arms control, now celebrates. Wouldn't it be nice if he recognized that today? He fought for majority rule in South Africa, a just settlement in Zimbabwe, normalization of relations with China, and democracy in Latin America. He also had a smaller deficit in 4 years than his successor had in 1. When Jimmy Carter became president, joblessness was our most pressing economic problem. In 4 years, he created more than 9 million new full-time jobs, including 1 million for blacks and 1 million for Hispanics. I've been in politics a long time. I've debated on the Senate floor. I've served at the highest levels of our government. And after one Democratic convention, a little stormier than this one, I crisscrossed the country on a crowded 727 as your candidate for vice president. And we almost did it in 1968. Through those years, I have known great men. Jimmy Carter is one of them. Let us remember him after the dark days of Watergate, speaking truthfully to the American people. Let us remember him clasping the hands of Anwar Sadat and Menachem Begin at Camp David. Let us remember this friend of the working people who honored solidarity not just in Poland, but in the factories and union halls of America. He told the truth. He made this country strong. He is a great American and a great Democrat. We're going to win in November, and in victory, we will profit by listening to Jimmy Carter, who was always willing to do what he had to do. Remember the truth, and then welcome the 39th President of the United States.
There was a major headline on the editorial page of the Atlanta Constitution that said Jimmy Carter is running for what? And what was about this today? I'm running for president.
He was the outsider in a crowded race. But as he and Rosalind shook half the hands in Iowa, and as he talked in his own way to people everywhere, they began to see a man of optimism, of purpose, a man with a sense of the future. He asked the people to join with him to make the country a better place, and they did.
We want to have faith again. We want to be proud again. We just want the truth again.
This is a good man, Jimmy Carter, and he'll make a strong president, and I'm behind him.
They not only nominated him, They elected him.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
He was the first man from the Deep South to become president since Zachary Taylor in 1848. He had promised to be a faithful steward of the nation's land and heritage, and he was. He had promised an administration that would have integrity, and it did.
And don't have the will.
He warned of our dangerous dependence on foreign oil, and he was right. He had promised a significant investment in the education of our young people, and he made it. He said he would not rest until we brought the hostages home, and that he would not pay ransom to terrorists. He stuck to his word. They all came home.
The first thing upon which we agreed was to ask the people of the world to pray that our negotiations would be successful. Those prayers have been answered.
On a Maryland mountainside, Jimmy Carter brought them together, and they were able to cut through the antagonisms that had divided the Middle East for centuries. It took a lot of hard work.
He worked harder than our forefathers did in Egypt building the pyramids.
They had given a new shape to the future. The work he began as president continues at the Carter Presidential Center in Atlanta.
You have made a wonderful contribution to the ongoing life of this city and of this nation, for you bring government of the people back to us, the people.
Today, people come here from all over the world. The Carter Center is a magnet for ideas. It attracted 12 Latin American presidents to encourage the growth of democracy in their countries. And it is a driving force in the control of arms, in the immunization of children, in the advancement of peace, and in the cause of human rights.
Because of their outspoken condemnation of human rights abuses. And I would like to ask Dr. Yuri Orloff to come forward.
At the Carter Center, hope is always alive.
One day we will all walk tall, holding hands, black and white together, because we will have entered into our heritage, the heritage of the glorious freedom of the children of God.
Much of the work of the Carter Center takes place far beyond its walls.
I have been governor of Georgia. I am not a governor. I'm not a minister of agriculture. I'm just a farmer, and very glad to be here.
These and thousands of other African farmers have increased their output fourfold, a direct result of the work of the Carter Center. And Jimmy Carter's guiding principles have not changed at all.
To reach our goals is not going to be easy. It's not going to be simple. It never has. Sometimes it's required suffering. Sometimes it's required patience. It's always required courage and determination and a sense of unity and a maintenance of our degree of faith. Ours is a great country. We're all in it together. We never thought it would take this long to reach the promised land. But we're moving in the right direction.
Nothing but bluebirds all day long. Never saw the sun shining so bright. Never saw things going so right. Noticing the day hurrying by. When you're in love, my, how they fly. Oh, blue day. Nothing but bluebirds all day long.
Farmer, governor, president, Democrat, citizen. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy Carter.
When we left Washington 7.5 years ago, I invited all my Democratic friends to come to Georgia to see us. But I never expected that you would all come, and at the same time. Well, this is a grand gathering of Democrats, but there's going to be an even greater one in January, when we all meet in Washington to celebrate the inauguration of Michael Dukakis as president and Lloyd Bentsen as vice president. Oh yes, I almost forgot, I have one announcement to make, which, like a lot of other things this year, may come as a bit of a surprise to the incumbent vice president. My name is Jimmy Carter, and I am not running for president. Did you hear that, George? Well, I have to admit that there are some parallels with both of our final candidates. I am a Southerner. I'm a Baptist. Some people even like to say that I love to preach. And my political career was made possible by the civil rights movement. That does sound familiar. There have been a lot of comparisons made between Mike Dukakis and myself. But I know one thing for sure. Mike Dukakis is also going from the State House to the White House. Our party has been blessed with good candidates this year. And not just this year. Wouldn't Ed Muskie have made a great president? Jesse Jackson has stirred the soul of our country. He's given hope to millions, and he's healed wounds that have too long divided us one from another. He is an inspired leader. He is destined for further greatness. Jesse, we salute you. Mike is being compared to John F. Kennedy. He is from Massachusetts. He's chosen a running mate from Texas, and he's going to defeat an incumbent Republican vice president. Mike Dukakis deserves that comparison, but he reminds me of other great leaders of our party as well. Like Woodrow Wilson, he is an idealist who believes that we can be true to our own best selves in a brutal world. Like Harry Truman, he is a tough fighter. Like Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he's an innovator with the courage to experiment and the competence to find solutions. And let's be clear about one thing. We want Mike Dukakis and Lloyd Bentsen to be elected, not just so Democrats can take office in Washington, but because we know that change is long overdue. We want a federal deficit brought under control. We want a coherent foreign policy. And we want to bring back to Washington people who are more interested in public service than they are in private gain. Each of us pauses on occasion to reassess our own lives. to look at what we have become, the mistakes we've made, and to decide what we'd like to be. I think as a nation we make this same kind of reassessment when we elect a president. Now is the time to reconsider our opportunities and our challenges, to make a change, and to decide what we want for the future, especially to decide what we want for the future. A democracy is always an unfinished creation. Each generation must rediscover the meaning of America's dream. Tonight, I'm thinking not only about the next president, but about our nation's children and how they will live in years to come. Roosevelt and I have 6 grandchildren. What kind of world will we leave to them and to other young people? In thinking about the past 8 years and looking ahead, let's recall the words of a great American president, Franklin Roosevelt. Listen to what he said. Governments can err. Presidents do make mistakes. But better the occasional faults of a government that lives in a spirit of charity than the consistent omissions of a government frozen in the ice of its own indifference. For the sake of our children, for the sake of our future, we must melt that ice. It's time to reach out for the homeless, to families broken by drug addiction and a disease. It's time to clean up those Pentagon scandals and build a lean, tough, competent military force. It's time to have a Justice Department that fights for civil rights. It's time to quit living on credit and expecting our children to pay the bills someday. It's time to tackle the continuing problems of poverty, of a decaying environment, of the bankruptcy of family farms. And it's time to invest in the education and care of our children, because that's the kind of nation we are. That's the kind of people we are. In some ways, America is a big family. A family does not ignore the sickness or pain of any of its children. A family gives all its members help and love. That's the kind of families we have. And that's the kind of nation we want. And a good family plans for its children's future, and that means education. 8 years ago, no American student was deprived of a college education because of financial reasons. But now for many young Americans, these opportunities have been wiped out. Starting in 1989, that is going to change. We Democrats do not fear change. We welcome it, because change means hope. Change means life. Above all, change means opportunity. And no changes are more profound than those taking place in the Soviet Union. The world is fascinated with news from Moscow. General Secretary Gorbachev has made move after move that would have seemed unthinkable a decade ago. It's still too early to assess the permanence or sincerity of those changes. We must never forget that Mr. Gorbachev's actions are designed to help his own country, not ours. Certainly, the competition between our superpowers will remain, but it can become